On this episode of the Neil Wilkins podcast, I'm delighted to welcome Satej Sirur. Now, Satej is the CEO and co-founder of Rocketium. These are some guys who are the leaders in creative automation and analytics. So if you're thinking AI and empowering and scaling and just getting better at what you're using it for, then this is the episode you need to listen to. Satej is recognized as one of Rethink Retail's top AI leaders in retail. And if anybody knows anything about retail, you will know how complex and complicated this can be. So again, Satej, very well qualified to be talking to us today. He has over 20 years experience building products at startups and tech giants like Microsoft and AWS. So he is passionate, as you can imagine, about helping people to focus on creative work and letting automation do the rest. Welcome to the podcast, Satej.
Thanks for having me, Neil. It's a pleasure.
I mean, this is almost the perfect storm, isn't it? To be us talking about this topic of automation, analytics, data, the use of AI to just help businesses, marketing teams, and broader to just become more effective and more efficient using AI. I mean, it's just, we're in that moment, aren't we, of opportunity?
Absolutely. And as is always the case, whenever there is some sort of calamity, people use that as an opportunity to rethink how they're working, try and bring in efficiency. Of course, there will be some people who will be a lot more cynical and want to do this only from a short term perspective of cutting costs. But there's really so much more to this. I think really we are at the cusp of seeing how people will work in the future, and it's magical every day, this kind of stories that you hear. Obviously, for a large swath of people, this will feel scary. It will feel like everything is changing, and what will their role feel like in the future. But you and I have lived through a couple of these transitions, of course, with whether the internet or just computing in general and mobile and things like that. But truly, this is something that is an order of magnitude more. So it's a very, very fascinating time. A little scary as well, because the future is, as it should be, quite unknown, but great time to be alive.
And I guess what you're doing is bringing together a lot of your kind of past background. Obviously, you've, as a development team and as a developer, at your core essence, really, I guess, is you've, over the years spent a lot of time kind of thinking through this concept of efficiency, because everything that you've done is enabled something, hasn't it? It's enabled a process, or it's a new system, or it's enabled an improvement. Are those kind of core, I guess, sort of mindsets? Is that really what's at the heart of this for you and your work?
Absolutely, that is absolutely at the heart of what we are doing. And when you say efficiency, productivity, those are great goals in and of themselves, and I don't want to belittle those in any way. But I just want to say that underlying that is a deeper respect for human potential. When you see a person who's capable of so much creativity, so much innovation, so many ideas, and where they are getting stuck is waiting for somebody to give some feedback or doing some sort of copy paste work, that is what is, personally, it is very frustrating. And this sort of mindset permeates even in my family life. So now, figuring out that, should I put motion sensitive light somewhere, should I automate some other part of my daily job? It's not so much that I want to be this 100% efficient economic man who is perfectly rational and logical and using every second of their time, but it is more about what else should I be doing that I really personally value, and at least have the option of doing that, rather than saying that all of my time is going to be taken by copy paste work and it is not a choice that I have. Right, that is really, Neil, what is driving what we do. And we did not start in the world of marketing. We started as a broader product company, serving hundreds of thousands of consumers, helping them make first games and then stories and then video. But then 5 years ago, we realized, when one of the largest retail and advertising company in the world reached out to us wanting to solve a problem. That's when we dug deeper and we realized, oh my God, every part of this process that you look at, people are losing so much valuable time. And again, efficiency, productivity, obviously, these are great goals. This is what you would get from using software like Rocketium. But really, the loss of somebody's weekend or somebody's family time, that was really the thing that motivated us more.
That's a really interesting. I really didn't think you'd sort of come at it from that angle, because I guess there's a lot of, I guess, expectation that either developers or marketers or anybody looking to really, I guess, make inroads and maybe even write their own playbook with regard to AI and these emerging technologies, they would be beginning from solving problems and nothing probably quite so humanistic or quite so strategic, but actually coming at this from enabling humanity is just, well, it's so powerful because it's almost irresistible, isn't it? Because it can come through in almost everything that we do. And as we're starting to see the emergence of things like agents, and as we say, these kind of systems and technologies that are going to be able to make us more efficient and help us to prioritize and enable us to be able to deliver our plans. At the heart of all of this is actually then freeing up our time and our capacity and the resources available. So there's just something lovely that if we can figure this out together, all of us, we're going to be in so much stronger a place, and then playing to everybody's skills and abilities rather than just, as you say, being held back. And it just feels so refreshing and empowering. Do you find that kind of sort of a pitch, I guess, if we could call it that, that kind of almost takes the fear away, because that feels like a great outcome, rather than always worrying about, oh, it's coming for my job. Actually, no, it's coming to help redefine your job, is a much, much smarter way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, Neil, whether it is our choice in doing it or how we have read the market, we almost never talk about this in our pitch to potential customers. We directly focus on what the business goal is, because we have never heard more creative time for the team, more innovation coming from them, or any of those as top level goals. It's always saving costs, getting more efficiency, reducing reliance on external agencies and freelancers, being more data driven. A lot of these kinds of very rational economic motivations. So that is what we really focus on in our pitch. But the way we work, the underlying philosophy of our team is more humanistic like this, because ultimately it is about having deep respect for their operations, where what do they do on a daily basis, where are they spending time, but also having that mindset where you can take an axe to any of those things, having no sacred cows, just saying that, okay, why do you do this part of work, this can be automated, why do you do this other thing, this can be augmented in some way, this can be replaced entirely. So you're right, this humanistic way probably sounds good if I would say it on stage, but when you're pitching to someone, they probably want to know, I get it, okay, but can I save $1 million next year because I'm replacing so and so thing, right? So that's unfortunately the truth. But at least a good thing is our buyers are not coming to us saying that we want to cut down our team. It's certainly buying more time for their team, the efficiency and productivity play.
There's a real kind of feeling of hope then, isn't there? Because if people aren't actually coming at this from, oh no, Satej, you can help me cut my team in half,
Yeah.
and I'll still be that productive, and we'll still get the products out the door. And if they're not saying that, that to me is a real positive. That's probably the most positive kind of angle that we could maybe take at this time, because I think there is still fear. I think people who don't necessarily understand how this is likely to play out in the next 6 to 12 months are very fearful, because they could be in a role where it is administrative. It is about doing predominantly, maybe 80% of their role is about production and repeat cycles of activity, and that has always been their role. So how would you kind of address that with somebody, if they were sat here with us today, kind of listening to this? How would you address their fears? Because a lot of the stuff they would currently be doing is going to be replaced here, isn't it?
Absolutely. So the way we position ourselves when we talk to people, we either talk to creative teams or we talk to paid marketing teams who are running campaigns. So one set of people only focuses on the requests that come to them, the briefs, the intake forms, whatever you call it, which just says that I need 100 pieces of content, 1,000 pieces of content, all of these products, this copy, this imagery, this sort of look and feel. And some part of their work obviously is very creative. These are creative people by definition and by job description. But a large part of their job, 30 to 40% in many cases, is just waiting on feedback, for example. Right. So At Rocketium, the way we pitch and position ourselves is highlighting this process to say that how are you getting your intake brief? After that, what happens? Oh, you are spending this much time in making that first piece of design. Great. That is where you are applying your creativity. What happens then? You are taking that design and then resizing it for all of these different platforms, which means doing the layout all over again. Do you agree that's fairly creative and innovative work? They say, hell no, it's just copy paste and just kind of little arranging stuff. Great, that's exactly what we solve for. Okay, what happens next? You give your files out for review. Is that an instant process? No, we have to download those files, sometimes put it in a ppt, sometimes put it in a pdf, sometimes put it in a drive folder. Somebody looks at it manually, sends me an email or a text or a Slack Teams message. Then I have to go back into my design software, make all of those changes. So is that a creative, innovative? No, 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 we really don't like this. So as they go through this process, they realize how much of their work is something that they personally do not enjoy doing. And if they had more time, then they could do the parts of their work there which are actually very impactful, where they could do a lot more as a business, and their team would value them. Obviously they are valued today, but they'll be valued a lot more as a strategic partner than somebody who's an expert in using design software. On the other hand, performance marketers, you go to them with the same sort of thing and they say that, yeah, oh, my time is fairly productive, I do a lot of things through automation. And then when you understand what they do, it's the same stuff in a slightly different software. I go to an ad platform, download this data, put it in an Excel, clean it up, standardize it, and then I'm looking at patterns within that. And how do I analyze? Oh, I go to a data analyst, ask them for some analysis. When do you get that back? Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. Or Google comes and gives me insights if it's a large enough brand. How often do they give you this stuff? Maybe once in 3 months, maybe once in 6 months. And so when you understand that, you could get deep insights, you could do deep research directly on your data yourself and get these kinds of insights. That's when they realize that they could be so much more creative, because they'll be unshackled from having to work on different tools, having to do all of this work manually or wait on other people. So really, as we dive through the process, as we understand each step, when they verbalize what they're doing, they sort of realize the level of copy paste work that they have to do and where they would rather spend their time.
I love the fact that this is about waking up, isn't it, as a business? Because we've all done it. I'm sure, Satej, you'd agree with me as well. Probably at times you've done it too, or maybe not, but I know I certainly have. Is almost fall into these. Well, they're not good habits. I'll call them bad habits. We fall into bad habits of, well, I just do it. And I've done it like that for the last year. And there's probably ways I could improve it. I could become a little bit more effective or efficient, but I just deal with it. I just do it. And we all just almost find ourselves making excuses for these bottlenecks, or as you say, there's the sign-off process there. That's a really great example, because I know a lot of people listening to this will feel the pain as you suggest that and talk about it. They'll think, that's me. That is actually what I face. And yet all I do is I just repeat and I never challenge it. Is this about actually challenging the existing, I guess you could call them process maps? Because I hear a lot, and I'm very much an evangelist of process mapping, because then you can identify where the gaps are or where the problems are. Is this about really kind of taking those steps backwards and actually stopping for a minute and really thinking through what is our process here? For this getting from A to B, or getting this thing signed off, every single step needs to be mapped out, so that we can then feed that to somebody like yourself, Satej. You can then actually identify where the emerging technology can almost solve those little moments, because it probably isn't the whole process, is it? It's probably little snapshots or little areas within the process where this would apply.
Absolutely. And we see that our best customers and our best buyers of our software are the ones who think about it like this. The ones who are, in our minds, very clearly not ready and not really looking to solve a problem, and will be several months, if not years, away from attempting this problem, are the ones who would come and say that I have this entire process. All of it needs to get better. I'm looking for an AI solution to solve that. And almost always we realize that they are too far away from actually solving that problem. The best ones have actually mapped out their process, whether creative, whether on the performance side. They know what steps are involved in this, and you don't have to go absolutely granular on this, but 5, 6, 10 steps. Once you realize, you figure out all the different teams that are involved in this, all the different tools that are being used. You figure out what parts of the process. It's like a doctor going through your body. Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? And you then screaming at some point, or I don't know if you've done acupressure, but there are parts of your ear or hand or wherever, when they press, the pain is so intense that you realize, okay, this is it, this is what I want to solve, right? And again, coming from our background of being product managers and engineers, this is how you would build stuff. There are 100 things to build always, but you would prioritize based on a certain framework. In our case, we look at something called RICE, which is reach, impact, confidence, and effort. So the reach obviously is how many customers would care about this feature that you might be considering. Impact is clear. Confidence is how realistic is this that you would solve it, and effort is how much time something would take. So thinking about the different initiatives that might come from each of your process steps where you might want to improve something, giving it a score like this. Our best customers are thinking like that, and when they are thinking like that, they are very clear that we need 2 solutions, 5 solutions, 10 solutions. And when they come to us, they realize that, oh, several of these things Rocketium can do because it's not a point solution. That's really where we see the most success. And that is why over the years, Rocketium has also expanded from just being a creative scaling and resizing kind of a software to a broader creative management and governance, and obviously all the making of the content, to then giving the analytics of it, because they have realized this is all part of one single process and not one team doing their thing, another team working in another silo.
I love this, Satej. I really do, because I think, when we've got these opportunities that come, almost once in a generation, something this big, like you say, this is at a magnitude none of us have ever experienced before, though we might have been through various other cycles. There is this kind of fear that, there is no playbook, that nobody's kind of written any instructions, because none of us, even Sam Altman, has never been here before. So, we're all kind of making this up as we go. But there's a level there of, if you know your processes, you're already starting to write your own playbook, aren't you, as a client, potentially, because nobody should know your business better than yourself. So therefore, if you do that process mapping, and that's not technical, is it? This is something that everybody can do. So there's almost like no excuse to get that competitive edge, because if you're, as you're saying, Satej, that a lot of organizations are not necessarily doing this yet, but the ones that are the ones that are ready for the implementation of the technology, then there's a competitive edge here, that if your competitors, and you're listening to this, aren't doing this, and you do your process mapping, you're going to be ready to have these kinds of conversations. So you are, by definition, writing the playbook for the whole industry, really. This is exciting. When you look at it in those terms, rather than, it's coming from my job, it changes everything, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and what you need to focus on is the job to be done, because with or without software, without offloading this to an external partner like an agency or a freelancer or AI or any of those things, the job has to get done. Ultimately, you are here to do something. Your job description today might feel like, I have to resize designs, or I have to review content for compliance, or I have to give a report talking about what sort of creative choices are leading to the best and worst outcomes. But that's not really the job description, really, if you think about the essence of it, what you are really trying to do, right? Ultimately, as a business, you're trying to, as a marketing and creative org, you are trying to get the right message to your audience about the right products in the right channel, right place, all of those kinds of things. So that's really the job, and the job is not the mastery of certain tools or mastery of a certain process. So if you don't have those sacred cows, like I was saying, you figure out what the job to be done is and then bring in technology, then you would realize that how secure your job is, because what that part of it, that core job to be done, only you can do. Only you have that deep understanding about your brand's tone and voice, about what your audience needs, about what sort of objectives you want to really go for, how each channel is really performing. And so there is going to be AI and intelligence and automation at every layer of this process, because I don't know if you read the other day, Mark Zuckerberg in one of the interviews was talking about the age of infinite creative, where he thinks that just put in the money, tell us who your audience is, tell us about your products, and then Facebook will do everything else. You just have to sit and count the money in your bank, right? And That really is can and should be the goal of Facebook. They are trying to make advertising very, very accessible to everybody. But the best marketers will not succeed from here. What this sort of technology will do is raise the floor, but the ceiling is going to be a lot bigger. So the best marketers are going to find that the average has gone up. So most marketers, because AI is doing that marketing, are getting really, really great outcomes. But that only means that they have to find more ways to be even better. And that is where technology comes in. So they really need to focus on what they need to be doing at an essence, and not which tool and which task and which process that they are owning.
Which is actually quite difficult, isn't it, really? Because we all get swept along by the media hype and all the stories that are coming through and opportunities, and there's this next best tool that everybody needs to try from wherever in the world it's originated from. And so there's a lot of pressure on us to kind of keep exploring and playing, isn't there? But I totally agree with your sentiment that it's about understanding your business and the process, and then the right tool will kind of slot into place after that. I was going to ask you, I definitely want to come on to the whole kind of data and analytics thing in just a moment, but I know obviously as a business, you've identified that there are two key areas that you're very much focusing on. One is creative and obviously the other is analytics. But does this apply, this process mapping and this kind of thought process, does it apply right the way through a marketer's kind of remit, everything from the research at the front end all the way through to evaluation of campaigns and then maybe changing a strategy at the far end? Is this an end-to-end thing? Can it apply everywhere?
This process mapping and understanding what you're doing certainly applies end to end. A lot of people might brush it off, saying that a lot of our work is really this sort of ephemeral. It just kind of happens. It's a creative process. We just sit together, or we those are the marketers who are not really ready for bringing in any sort of efficiency or using AI, because they don't really know what they are doing on a daily basis. And luckily, those are not the kind of people that we speak with on a daily basis. The ones we speak with are very clear that there are going to be these 5, 6, 10 tentpole events for us. We know, come hell or high water, these events will happen. Whether Mother's Day just went by, but whether it's Mother's Day or Black Friday or Christmas, any of those have to happen. Apart from that, there is BAU or business as usual campaigns that we would be running. Those have to happen. Now, there might be few places where there is completely unexpected, maybe some sort of social moment has happened, maybe some sort of business continuity has been called into question, and that's where I have to be really creative and think on my feet and do something totally new in a very, very short time. But most other things are already known. So within that sort of a sandbox or a canvas that you've been given, you have drawn these boundaries, and within that you have to be creative. So they know what the process is. They know that within 6 weeks my next campaign is coming up. I know these are the 6 audiences. My audiences don't change every other day. I know the channels, I know the products that 80% of the things are the same. The 20% is really where you are doing your creativity. So whether it is coming up with an interesting brief, trying out a new, slightly new idea, because you can't go and rebrand yourself. You can't try a totally different way of speaking to your customer. So now within those boundaries, how am I doing? So really the process end to end is, I wouldn't call it rigid, but it certainly has a structure. And within that structure, you're trying to be creative. So absolutely, end to end, the whole process can and should be mapped, should be understood. You don't need to try and automate or bring in AI or analytics at every step of those, but like the framework that I told you, the RICE framework, you might want to at least think about what a potential solution or potential final state would look like, which would be ideal for you. And then saying, how far are we from that? How much effort is it to get to that? And is this the first thing that I want to solve, or is it something else?
It's interesting, isn't it? I know you use the word scalable a lot, sort of in your work. I mean, is it the case that there's a scalable element to this almost from the get-go, or is it a case that we need to almost prove the process, prove the improvement, and then scale? I mean, how quickly can somebody scale an improvement, either to reduce something or to maybe grow something? Because I'm sure that's what people are thinking, is like, well, this sounds great. I do my process map. Satej comes in and works the magic with the improvement, and then we can scale, and we can do this by next Tuesday. Tuesday. Is it a case of that, or does it take a lot longer? Is time a big feature here?
Time is certainly a big feature here, Neil, because some people want to bring in this change, but the network is fairly well connected. In our case, the kind of people that we work with are not only the performance paid marketers that we work with and the creative people. There are also business folks. Many of our customers are in retail. We have some agency customers as well and other brands. And there could be a category team, there could be a data team, there could be somebody from the product side, and you can't change wholesale the entire process because some part of it wants to get better. And which is why we've built the product also in such a way that you don't have to bring in everybody in order to solve it. So as an example, the review process that I mentioned, if you have to tell somebody that you have to change everything that you're doing about the review process, bring in everything onto Rocketium, and then that is the only time you will get efficiency gains. It's not a non-starter, but very few people are going to be able to adopt it right away. So instead, what we do is bring in some lessons from our world that we understand, which is software, and say that what do you typically review? Give us some of those rules. Those can almost instantly be codified so that when you make content on Rocketium, the first 20, 30, sometimes 50% of the checks that you would do can be automated. So follow the same process. If you don't want them to come to Rocketium and very easily review and leave comments, maybe make some of those minor copy and asset changes, design changes themselves, that's fine. Let 50% of those, 20% of those, as the case may be, the checks be done right away so that you can fix it, you can check it yourself, and then pass it along to them. So suddenly in a matter of days they will see the number of things that they have to review just crashing. And our customers are always surprised by this, that some teams that did not even know that Rocketium has been adopted, and again Rocketium is an example here, whichever tech you might end up using, they suddenly feel like, what has changed? This team is suddenly so much more nimble. They are not shying away every time I have an idea that, hey, you know what, maybe let's try three other versions of this, or I want to try four other platforms where I might need 10 more size adaptations of something. This team is not shying away from that. What has happened, right? And so that is really what is possible. So the way we operate and how both buyers and software makers should operate is to say that, can I add value in increments but support them throughout the whole journey? So it's a combination of being both broad as well as deep, because if you are a point solution, you haven't really helped them fully, because your point solution has helped them get to a certain point, but then as soon as they want to do more, guess what, they have to find another software, or the review happens somewhere else, or the analytics happens somewhere else, or generating assets I have to go to something else, modifying my image to clean it up and tag it and store it some other tool, right? So if you have different parts of it which are being stitched together in the same software, but you allow people to adopt it piecemeal, I think that's the best combination of getting value as well, and then over time diffusing and dissipating throughout the rest of the organization.
So there's a kind of a level of familiarity there, which is important, isn't it? Because, you know, I think you're probably well, I'm sensing you're talking about an evolution here rather than a revolution. So we're looking here, as you say, incremental improvements across where the priority areas need to be, and then the accumulation of those over time gives you those process improvements. And then once you've figured that bit out, then you can scale. So yeah, okay. So a little bit of patience required, and a lot of communication, I'm guessing, across the wider business, particularly in these larger organizations that you're talking about. I guess it is one of the still one of the key kind of I guess currencies in these kind of transactions, if you call them that, data. Because over the last 5 to 10 years, you know, this phrase big data has been, you know, everybody's been talking about it, and certainly in marketing circles, it's like, whoa, do you have big data? How are you going to use your big data? Well, we've got this CRM, we're doing this, we're doing that. Is that still going to be true going forward, or is the magic of AI going to be almost taking away the need for some of that big data, and we'll be using AI to almost make forecasting and judgments and prioritization a very different thing? Do we still need big data?
No, absolutely, Neil. What is most crucial is you need to have data at the start of it. And I know that these things sound very high level and vague. So let me give you an example in our world what that means. Today, marketers are dealing with, when they are dealing with campaigns at a large scale, the only data that they get, the only data that they can trust at the top of the transaction, the top of the funnel, is what is coming from the ad platforms. How much did you spend, where, who saw it, who took action, what happened after that. Then there is the bottom of the funnel data that you have from your platforms. How many people bought, what did they buy, how much are they repeating, that sort of information. And there is one sort of work that they have to do to tie that together: attribution and a lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, those kinds of things. Then there is a part of the creative side of things, which is where you are reaching customers, and that top of the funnel that I talked about, the data for that is absolutely missing. The only thing that they have to deal with is the platform level data, and then the absolute end, which is what action they ended up taking. There is no information from any platform about what they saw, what sort of copy worked with them, what sort of imagery have you tried, what colors, what layouts, and all the infinite choices that you've made. There is no information about that coming from any platform. So whether you have some big data system that you have, whether there is some AI that you're using, if you don't know what people saw, and if that is not a part of your conversation, then it's almost like having only certain kinds of Lego blocks, which means you can build only certain kinds of structures. Whether AI does it very very fast and very much more creatively compared to what a rigid BI dashboard or some sort of static report that you might have can do. And AI obviously can do it on demand as well. You don't have to have a report ready and go to an analyst every time, but you only have certain Lego blocks. You're missing certain other Lego blocks, right? So obviously this starts with data. So in our case, what we help customers do is they connect their platforms, we pull in data from all the different platforms, we add to it information from the creative content itself. So we go through every piece of content automatically, of course, delayer it, deconstruct it, figure out all the different elements within it, some standard 80 attributes that we have, and in addition to that, what the business cares about. A sports team or a league might care about, is it players, is it the stadium, is it something else. A dog food, cat food manufacturer might care about what breed of animal, should I show humans with the animals or no, should it be at home or outside. Those are the things that they care about. So having this sort of known things that we automatically extract. So the underlying part of getting great analysis, whether done by people or BI tools or AI, is having that data. So once you have that rich data coming from different platforms, on top of that is this rich information about the creative decisions that you've made. Then AI on top of it can do wonders, because you have so many more Lego pieces and so many more pieces of each kind. There are magnificent structures that you can make.
So to me, then this is really interesting because it kind of positions AI and the capability that we're talking about here as a layer. So this isn't that we're stripping out all the existing infrastructure in the business. We're saying, oh, we got it all wrong, guys, and the world has moved on. We need to replace everything. It's saying we're going to work with what we have, processes, systems, and our technology, and we're going to put this layer of capability on it or underneath it to underpin it. And that's actually what we're talking about here. Again, just in terms of that transition from an existing setup to something that is enabling, real empowerment going forward. That feels like a much smaller leap that a business decision maker or a marketer needs to make. So we're not going to be incurring a huge amount of additional cost by, replacing all our legacy systems. What we're saying is actually everything we've got kind of works right now, but this is another layer that's going to open up this Pandora's box of opportunity. Have I got that right?
Absolutely, Neil. And this is how the AI providers are also looking at the world. What they are saying is that our LLMs have been trained with the knowledge that is accessible in this world. What is not accessible is your internal data, your processes, your conversations on a Slack or Teams or email. So you can expose to our agents your internal tools, your internal resources. And that is where some of these newer lingo that they have come up with, things like MCP servers or agent to agent communication. That is what they are saying, which is that give us access. You build tools that let our agents access your data. And that's how we have also built our Copilot, that instead of saying that, oh my god, for the last 5 years the millions of lines of code that we have written is gone because AI can do something. Instead we have said all of those 1,000 features that we have built can be exposed as tools. And so now, instead of us building a UI where a person now has to go and say that, hey, you know what, I'm going to figure out in Rocketium's user interface where I should go to add a reflection to every one of my 100 objects that I have. Oh, so should I bulk select, then select this, add a reflection? Should I scroll? Instead of that, you might just have selected an object and say that add reflection. So now that agent is able to figure out among the myriad tools that Rocketium has built. And that's the amazing tech that we all have access to, which is these LLMs and these AI providers having built these agents who can take human input, convert that into something that machines can understand, go through the right tools and say that, oh, it looks like Rocketium has a reflection tool, a clip masking tool, and a shadow tool. Okay, let me go to this one. Pass it the right information, it does its thing. And that tool is no different from you as a user having clicked on something, right? So even on the analytics side, being able to add a report or a dashboard, you are querying the data, you are making a visualization and putting together a widget. Instead, you could have just said that, hey, what are my top performing copy options that I've tried, or how does the kind of model that I've used, or how does the kind of product. So that is now getting converted into the right kind of a query because Rocketium has exposed those as tools to the agent. It goes and does that query. So you don't have to know what query to write, what sort of report to make. You don't have to go to an analyst, right? So that's the power of having built software, having had so much data, having had all of this knowledge about different processes. As Rocketium, we're able to do this. So same way as a business, if you are not using software like ours and you want to do it on your own, it's the same thing, that you already have all of these different things that you have built over the years. How do you connect that to LLMs so that their agents can talk to you in a more conversational way, but then translate that into something that can go into your data, into your tools, into your ways of doing things? So it is really, like you are saying, a layer on top, and you don't have to rethink, you don't have to throw away everything. It just builds on top of everything that you've done, makes it frankly a lot more human than whatever software we've had before.
It feels that way, just the way you're describing it, Satej. It really feels it's human. You can literally talk to this layer and get it to enable. This isn't some, sort of magical box that is, going to replace everything and anything. It's a very much a collaborative approach, and treat it as a new member of the team. And this layer will help and enable things that, we probably have only been dreaming of over the last few decades, and now it's available. I'd like to kind of just round off, ask you, what would be a single next step that somebody should do? So if somebody isn't yet on this journey, but they feel they have the timing is right, they feel like they should be starting this conversation internally, what would be the next step? Is it the process mapping, or is there something else you would suggest they do first?
Yeah, so for me, that's a great question. For me, the process map would be the second thing I would do. The first thing I would say is that, is there any known business objective coming right down from the board or the C suite or the execs, or if nothing else, my manager, to say that there is some business objective we are working towards? Is it torrid growth? Is it cost cutting? Is it about beating competition? What is a business goal that we are working towards? And in a way, this is like the OKR framework, which is objectives and key results. So there is some top level goal that we are all working towards. Now, how can my team contribute to it? And at that point, if you realize that, okay, so as a creative team, if I give you more content, it enables personalization, which enables better creative outcomes, which enables. So if you are able to tie it down to that, then you are realizing that, okay, my team, we should just bring in more efficiency, so more content faster, or do I reduce my reliance on extra? So you are just able to come up with key initiatives from your side. Same way, just saying that, hey, we are going to do so much more analytics and use data to make our campaigns better. Is that coming from some underlying goal that you would have, right? So start with that, then figure out which part of your process you want to really touch, because you want to approach this with the approach that AI is not a sledgehammer, it's a scalpel. So which part of the process do you want to touch? So start with the business goal, come up with the high level of your process, then you can obviously go deeper. So don't spend months trying to come up with a process map. Just speaking with 5 people, you have a good sense of where things are, what do they do. and now figure out what are the different tools that I can try and apply. It could be 5 6 different tools that I would bring in, or a single tool that would do the job. But really it starts with the business objectives and then you tying yourselves to that.
Wonderful. That is just such practical advice. And I think, for all of us, we can work at that kind of level. And then obviously listening to this, if you then want to having done that, take this to the next level, then we will put Satej's contact details and Rocketium's website actually in the description at the end of this episode. You can see this below there, the contact details, if you want to have that conversation, because now I feel is probably the time we are ready to solve a lot of these problems that we've been talking about here. So if you feel like you are ready to do that, connect with Satej and yes, start the journey together. This has been such a great conversation. It's so good to hear that this is practical and yet it's strategic and it's human at the same time. Nobody should be fearing it. It's all good news. So Satej, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Neil. I really enjoyed our conversation.